Down. Tonight we'll go back in time to seasons past when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score, which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Sports History Network in conjunction with Swick Enterprises. And we're live from the Southport, North Carolina home of Gridiron Greats Magazine. I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America that focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 150 plus years of football history and memorabilia, and you can find us on the web at gridirongreatsmagazine.com. It is at this time I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in pre-World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon, Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show.
The classic bookends, Captain. Red Grange and Steve Largent.
Can't get better than that.
The perfect NFL just head-to-head here. By the way, Seahawks run Sunday Night Football. And I don't know if you noticed, but the great Chris Collinsworth gave a nod to the amazing Steve Largent.
I saw that.
Pan over to the number 80 retired banner and the rafters there.
I saw that. I was impressed. I did think of you. I was going to text you, but I figured you were probably at the game on the 50-yard line there.
I was expecting a flurry of text,
information,
football thread.
Sharing information with the new head coach, the non-gum chewing, anti-Pete Carroll coach of the Seahawks. Those uniforms, though, are just. What are they thinking? I mean, they are. Oh. I can't get into it. And to see the Packers in white.
And what? Yeah, thank you, Bob. I appreciate the. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm appalled by the glow dark, fluorescent green. We'll get to our guest later, but the night optic, glow in the dark laser green.
Unbelievable. Even Brenda said, "Why do they have uniforms like that? They look like."
Why are the Packers in white and the Seahawks in fluorescent green?
I don't know.
It should be reversed.
It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. But anyways.
Talk about a fall from grace with both coaches, too. I mean, I hearken back to the years when we stole Mike Holmgren from you and went on to, win a Super Bowl,
sure.
Or go to a Super Bowl in 2005. And
sure.
Now you think where Mike McCarthy is, and both of us have really crappy coaches, and all we can do is shake our head in the NFC and fingers crossed at a rebuild.
It's just incredible to see and do, and just to watch these games. And again, being on the East Coast, it's a late night for me to try to watch the entire game. And they might as well just start the game at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So you go to bed at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Just anybody who has to work.
Did I ever tell you in 2005, my wife and I went to Philadelphia for a Monday night football game, Seahawks versus the Eagles. And this is when the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl. So we were good. And about 5 o'clock, I'm West Coast. I'm used to Monday night football coming on at 6 o'clock. So about 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, we hit the bar. We're having dinner. We're grabbing some drinks, and then we go to jump in a cab, and the bartender's like, "Where you guys heading?" Monday night football game. We're dressed in Seahawk garb, and he's like, "Guys, that doesn't start until 9 o'clock. You got 3 hours." Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, 9 o'clock. We're like, well, it was just such a brain fart for us to be like, oh, that's right. There is a 3-hour time difference. So, needless to say, we carried on in that bar in Philadelphia and had a few libations and made it to the game on time.
That's good. That's good. Hey, we were talking beforehand. You were talking about some incredible prices for some brand new shiny rookie cards. Fill our audience in on this this debacle in the making as far as the bubble of the new material.
Yeah, brand new shiny. I'm going to do a quick share here, but this is some results of an auction that closed. Left side is Heritage, classic example, some vintage, and right side is Golden. So if you want to talk about the juxtaposition, the bookends of vintage versus modern that you and I sit here and talk about, get off my damn lawn, you kids. Here are some classic Hall of Famers: Gale Sayers, Terry Bradshaw, Roger Staubach, obviously a Navy Heisman Hall of Famer there, Roger Staubach. You notice none of these people went to West Point. Moving on to Ken Stabler, Walter Payton, and Steve Young. All of these very high-end vintage Hall of Fame rookie cards. That Walter Payton card, classic. If you add all 6 of those Hall of Famers together, that would be an incredible bookend to a Hall of Fame rookie card collection. And you compare it to that one Patrick Mahomes card at nearly $250,000. That is our hobby in a nutshell, and I will stop sharing so that Bob is led.
It's just mind-boggling to me that and obviously you got to have deep pockets to dump $250,000 on a brand new card.
One card.
And
I think we're in agreement. Patrick Mahomes is a future Hall of Famer. The numbers he's putting up, Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
I mean, unless he absolutely, pulls an Alex Smith here, in the next couple of years and shatters a leg. Even then, I mean, Gale Sayers made it in after 7 years. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a future Hall of Famer. He's changed the game.
Right.
He's dominated.
He's generally a good player. I don't take anything away from the guy. I mean, he's a good player. He's smart on the field. He's got that little cockiness, and he doesn't let anything bother him on the field. And then that's a sign of a good player to me. But how is it possible that card is worth $250,000 is beyond me.
Get off my damn lawn. Get off my damn lawn. I mean, there's a lot of speculation in this. I mean, I've talked about, like, what is the 2017 rookie card, for Patrick Mahomes? Even on VFC, somebody, our vintage football chat room, led by fearless leader Jeff Payne, somebody recently posted, "Hey, what's the rookie card for this person?"
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I'm going to throw it back to a rookie card we all know, we all hold dear, the 1977 number 177 top Steve Largent card. There can be only one. There is one rookie card, and that is Steve Largent rookie card, the top's 177. Nobody's in doubt. Nobody's saying, is it the 76 Fred Myers issue that I wrote a really compelling article about in Gridiron Greats a few years ago? Nobody's talking about that. It's what of the 300 Patrick Mahomes cards issued in 2017 is his true rookie card.
Right. And to me, coming from, a two sets of card existence, growing up, Philadelphia and tops, Fleer and tops, Fleer and action and tops, so on and so forth. Then the explosion in 1989. And I talked about this 1,000 times if I talked about it once. Who's collecting all these different sets? And I still remember in the early 90s working at the card shop. And I'm saying to myself, how can anyone possibly keep up with the 30 separate boxes we had on the shelf of football cards? I could see somebody buying a pack of each just to say, I bought it, see what it's like, have a type collection. But from 1989 to, this past season, you're talking about millions upon millions of cards produced. Where are they? Who's collecting?
Our listeners know Bob is serious. When he hits that shrill voice, when he hits that high note, we know Bob is serious.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And I can't really see him being that beneficial to the hobby, contrary to what a lot of people told me, especially the younger people.
It's gambling. It's really high stakes gambling. I mean, $500 for a blaster pack, hoping for that chase card, hoping for that 1-of-1. It's sadly gambling. I mean, and I opened my share of 84 tops wax packs, which I also wrote a really compelling article about for Gridiron Greats, several years ago. I mean, chasing the Marino, the Dickerson, the Elwood, but it wasn't a chase then. It was that's really cool. I got it. There's not 3 of these in existence. Not a fabric patch refractor, prism card, I don't know. Something's changed. It is just high stakes gambling. $500 for a blaster pack. I mean, it was 25 cents for a wax pack.
Right.
I mean,
I go back to the nickel a pack days, and they're long gone. When I was, like I said, a couple of years ago when we first moved down here, and we were in the condo.
Yeah.
I went to Walmart. It's
Yeah.
$10 a pack. I mean, I'm saying, what are you kidding me? So I even know what I'm buying, and I'm opening them. I don't even know who half the players are. I've never even heard of them before. So
half the players, and what the hell kind of card is this?
Yeah,
did I nail the black prism or the silver prism?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anyways, to get off my damn lawn.
We continue to beat a dead horse on it, but I'm glad you brought up that Mahomes card for $250,000 because it is just incredible to look at. The other thing I want to cover real quick. This is going to be it should be our last show for the season. We had another good year. We are fully entrenched on the Sports History Network. We do get a lot of people listening. We are on Apple Podcasts now, so we really expanded our audience. It's very humbling for me, and I know I speak for you, Joe, and all our guests we've had. People are listening. And we don't saturate the airwaves. We're not on a podcast daily like some other 24/7 sports people. We're selective, and we speak when we have something to say. That's what I tell a lot of people. But we had some great shows this past year.
Yeah.
Two in particular I want to touch base very quickly on. We had our first former NFL player on our podcast. E. Blake Moore played for the Bengals and the Packers. What a great guy. Got to know him a little from a student of mine who works for him, who attends the University of Cincinnati where I teach online. Got to meet him, obviously through the phone and through the computer, but great guy. It was a great show.
Yeah.
Talking
very humble. Really talked about his days. The head coaches just being moved on to Cincinnati after Green Bay when
Forrest Gregg.
Yeah,
Forrest Gregg moved on.
Hall of Famer, off lineman. I mean, that was really cool. That was our first ex-NFL player that we had on the show. And I know earlier this year I planted the flag and said, goals are important. Painted pictures, vivid visions, whatever you want to call it. In business, we are always planting flags out, 3 years. My 3-year plan was to get Steve Largent on the show.
I know.
I'm going to give you an update, Captain.
Okay.
I have a good friend who owns a business up in Seattle. And this year, he got Jim Zorn, the head coach of the Washington Redskins.
Okay.
And also he's a quarterback for the Seahawks. Left-hander out of Cal Poly, classic number 10 during the Seahawk days. He had Jim Zorn up at a business event that he had, a big fishing trip and speaking event.
Okay.
He told me next year he plans on bringing in Zorn and Largent.
Okay.
Guess who's got 2 thumbs and got invited to that event?
Let me guess. Could it be you? Yeah. Good.
Absolutely. Very good friend of mine. He posted up on his social, network, Jim Zorn as the fishing boat is leaving the dock. Jim Zorn, lefty, throwing a pass to him on the fishing boat as it leaves. And I was like, what the hell, Mark? How do I invite myself to that?
Yeah.
So next year, I'll be up there rubbing elbows with Steve Largent and Jim Zorn. And at some point, I'll be like, hey, Steve, I'm the co-host on this little podcast called Gridiron Greats. And as luck would have it, you used to play on the gridiron. So who can resist the Joey charm?
That's true. That's true. I wonder how much money we're going to have to come up, though, to get him on the show. That's the only thing.
Luckily, we have the budget for it.
Exactly. And then the second show I want to mention, Paul Centura, who had an incredible collection of oddball football.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff from the 1960s. Nice 77 Topps Mexican cards, and he displayed beautiful display he had in his office. Great guy to talk to and look at his collection. Great. Yeah. And that's what, to me, the hobby's all about, collecting. And he really represented it well. And he was one of our very most listened to shows over the year
Yeah.
because of his collection and seeing everything.
Well,
But I think
77 Mexi is so, it's one of those esoteric, sets that if you know it, you know it. If you don't,
right.
like what the hell? But I mean, obviously running parallel with the 77 tops, but issued for 1 year, just a little
Yeah.
tops experiment out of Mexico.
Yeah.
It's why I don't speak Spanish very well, is because I learned most of my Spanish reading 77 tops Mexican cards. But his 62 post set was pretty amazing too.
Incredible, beautiful cards. So we're looking forward to after tonight a new season next year. We'll be back in January. We're working on a few guests, and we got several that we're going to be looking at.
Obviously, our year-end recap, talking about the top shows we've had,
right,
excludes today's show.
That's true. That's true. And on that note, I am going to introduce our special guest tonight. Has been a guest on our show back in June 2017 and also December 2022.
Wow.
Born in Southeast Louisiana and raised along the Gulf Coast. He graduated from the United States Military Academy in 2002 and commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Engineers. He's currently a colonel in the United States Army and in his 22nd year of service to our country. He has had multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and has been stationed all over the world, currently working in the Netherlands with NATO. He's married with 3 children. He is also an expert on Army football memorabilia, particularly Army-Navy tickets. And I would like to welcome tonight a good friend of our magazine and of the podcast, Mr. Scotty Autin. Scotty, thanks for coming on.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy coming on here, listening to your banter, talking just football memorabilia. I love the video option. I get to see the glorious hair and everything that is Jeff. So I've no doubt that you can persuade the guest to come on. Let's do a little shake there.
I don't have to worry about that either. So.
And the sun is rising right here, so I'm facing south. So I get this Queen album cover aura.
You got a halo going. I can see it. But thank you both. It's awesome. Awesome to be here. I'm excited to chat.
Spread out through the world today with all different time
zones.
No
kidding.
I appreciate everybody taking time out. And Scotty, I want to lead off a question we've asked before, but it never gets tiring to listen to what you mention here. How'd you get started on collecting Army-Navy memorabilia?
Yeah, sure. No, so I graduated West Point 2002. I was a baseball card collector as a kid, but I wasn't really a big collector beyond that. I kind of fell out in the early 90s when most of the other card collecting population fell out, and went off to the military academy, graduated, married my classmate. And so we got married. We were kind of moving all over, and around 2009, our first son was being born. And we were settled, and we were just kind of looking for stuff we were finally settled in a house. We're just looking for stuff to outfit it. Right. And so generally about 5 to 7 years removed from the military academy is when people start getting excited about their experience. You kind of forget all the other stuff, and the positives come next. So I was looking for stuff to outfit it, and I went on eBay. I'd never been on eBay before. I think I opened a profile in 2009 and never been on there, and started searching around. And
oh wow,
I just randomly was looking for West Point Army football, and a 1922 Army-Navy program popped up. It was for auction. I didn't even fully appreciate and understand how eBay worked, and so I was kind of watching it. But it was this beautiful program, very Art Deco. It was colorful, and it shows a young cadet and a young midshipman, and they're vying for the hand of this very dapper flapper girl. She's got a big hat, and she's being escorted, and that's the cover of the program. I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's elegant. It's simple. It's really, it kind of catches your eye. And I bid on it. I talked to my wife about it, and we're like, I bid on it and I want it. And looking back, I got a pretty good deal on. I think it was around $100, which to me at the time was like, man, this is crazy. But looking back, it was a fairly good price for that. And so I got that, and I started I said, oh, this is really neat. I got it in. I was looking through it, all these old ads and everything. I mean, just really cool. You realize the history that's in these old programs.
Mhm.
And things that you can't Google, right? There's certain things you find.
Right.
They're almost lost to history because we believe that all of our information is online now. If you can't find it online, it didn't happen. So you're just reading about this really cool, there's a history of the series. You're learning about these players. You're kind of really getting a great snapshot in these programs. And so I bought some more, and I kind of, the collection starts to snowball like it does.
What year was that, Scotty? Did you say?
This was 2009.
Oh, at 9. Okay.
I just gotten back from Afghanistan. 2010 is really where I kind of probably like a lot of collectors, you go a little overboard at the start, right? You're like, oh my God, I got to buy all of this stuff. And then you start to learn the market, right? And so I'm going to do a very fast forward there, but what I found was I liked the programs, but I really liked the tickets. Like the tickets to me, it started as the ticket stub because you're like, hey, this was at the game. This is super cool.
Yeah. And
then, I really kind of started chasing unused tickets, full tickets.
Yes.
And as your audience can appreciate, I mean, especially a game of that magnitude, Army, Navy, then Army, Notre Dame, it's like Michigan, Ohio State, and all those others, you didn't have a lot of people not go. So to find an unused ticket, it was very, very rare. Those games sold out every single year. And so to find an unused ticket was rare. And so I was looking and say, I want to try and get an unused ticket to every game, Army Navy game, right? And so kind of going after that, it's one thing if you're going to put together like a football card set. It's another thing if you're going to put together a set where you don't even know if everything exists.
Yeah,
right. You don't know if there is
pretty rare.
Yeah, right. And whether they actually are out there, and so it was always a hunt for you start with a stub and then you try to upgrade it to a full. And so that's kind of where I redirected my football collecting, and that kind of took off. I still bought programs where I could, but they're just big, they're heavy, they're bulky, they take up a lot of space, and when you're in the military, you move a lot, and so you got to be careful with and I have luckily I have a very patient wife and understanding, and
try uncut sheets.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine, right? I mean, huge, and they just take up a lot of space. And then, as you guys can appreciate, when you fall into these great communities, and starts with, Net 54 and then VFC, and you get to know people and you build relationships, and they look out for you, you look out for them, you start to find really unique and cool stuff. I mean, you can kind of see behind me here, like just as you start, you kind of have your focus area, but then you start to realize you're like, man, that's really rare. Like that's special. And it's better to pull it into this community than to just let it kind of float, or
agree.
not in a selfish way. But ultimately my intent with this collection, I don't need it to sit in office. The intent is ultimately to get it back to the academy. And I've had a lot of conversations with the academy, and they do a great job of preserving aspects of their history, but not all of it, especially their sports. Really cool. They're trying to get back into that. And so there's an ongoing dialogue with them about, how do we equitably, as you guys appreciate, you have a lot of money in this, so you have to find a middle ground, as well as display it. And so that's the long-term goal, but that's kind of very start to finish, how it started to where we are now. On that. And for the tickets, so I've got really the first ticket that I've been able to find is 1899. I think the Naval Academy has one in their archives from 1892, 93, but nothing really in the 1890s. And so from 1899 to current, I have a full run of tickets, with about 95% of them being full tickets.
Wow. Wow.
So that is what, 130 tickets
Yep. Yeah.
with
And
90%
even
of being full unused ticket stubs. Jeez.
full, yeah, over 90% I'm in full. And that's on the, I don't want to play full show and tell, but that's on the PSA website for those that are interested. And yeah, and so
I
so
have my one and only.
about
2000.
5 years ago, roughly 5 years ago, 4 years ago, they stopped printing tickets. They started
Right,
going to e-tickets, kind of the bane of ticket collectors.
yeah.
And I feel fortunate that I know some folks in the academy. They've got some initiatives that they're willing to do for their kind of some of their VIPs. They get generals, they get the president elect came to this last game. The presidents attend some of those games.
Absolutely.
And so what their protocol session does is they have a section of about 500 or 600 tickets that they're willing to print. And so you got 60,000 e-tickets and about 500 printed tickets. And so I've been able to work with that that team that puts those together over the last 4 or 5 years. I've been part of the designing on some of them, as well as just working with them on what they should say and do. And so sometimes they'll hark back. I'll send them an image of an older ticket. So like Bob's ticket that he held up there, that's a modification of the 1947 ticket. And that ticket, yeah. And so they took the 1947 ticket and then modeled that ticket off of the 47 ticket, right?
Yeah, and you can see it.
There you go.
Yeah, up here.
On the back, he's got a copy of it, and so that's my ticket, right? I own that ticket, and so they used it as a copy to generate. And they did the same thing in 2020. They used the 2020. The game was played at West Point because of COVID. The last time the game was played at West Point was in 1943 because of the World War II restrictions, right? So the teams were restricted on their ability to travel because of gas rations, security.
Right.
So they went to West Point. And so they used I sent them a picture of the 43 ticket, and they used that as the model, and they have a picture of the 43 ticket on the back, right? And so it's, I have that ticket there, and some of it is cool because it's generating, it's recognizing history, it's recognizing the football memorabilia from history, but it's also generating new memorabilia, right? And generating new collectibles and ways to memorialize the game and think about who came before, what's going on. So it's kind of a long-winded answer for you there, Bob, but it's just a really interesting way to connect into the hobby and connect back to West Point. I've met a lot of great people at West Point through this, and just kind of going from there.
Great nod to the history. I love it. Well, first of all, Scotty, I mean, I absolutely, thank you for being on the show. There's this fun rivalry, the Army-Navy game. First of all, this year's Army-Navy game had like the highest viewership in 30 years. It was one of the top games of the week. I mean, and I'm retired Navy. I was just enlisted. I was just an enlisted puke. So I mean, not an officer. But I mentioned before the show, a very, very dear friend of mine, a retired Lieutenant Colonel Bob Knight, passed away Saturday morning. So for the first time in 30 years, I was rooting for Army. Hoo-ah. So sadly, it didn't end that way. I mean, sadly, but yeah, that's okay. And I don't know what time zone you're in, what time it is. I can see the lights dimmed a little bit, but also thank you for getting up early to be on our show. That means a lot. And for a colonel in the active Army to do this, I tip my hat to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Joe. Yeah, and I'm sorry about your friend. I mean, it's always tough. I know he was it hits the West Point community too. It's a small community. So I'm terribly sorry about the loss, but thanks for rooting. Unfortunately, the game didn't go the way we wanted, but always smack talk before, but always kind of hugs on this afterwards, but tears on the inside, and going, all right, next year it's on.
And talk about an impressive press box, like you said. President-elect I mean, almost, the staff, the Speaker of the House, it's impressive. This game has got a lot of notoriety. That's just impressive to just see the rollout for that. And again, like you said, we're all, I mean, just as silly as it is, one of the referees coming out. I mean, before he called a foul, he's like, first of all, thank you to all the vets. He gave a really good, satisfactory salute, and I dig that kind of stuff. I love it. I get goosebumps, thinking about a lot of that. I mean, at the end of the day, we all are here. We're all Americans. Real quick. I mean, I collect ticket stubs as well, and I go for, my monster is every college game that Red Grange played.
Yeah. Good luck.
Which is a tough one. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. From 23 to, 25. I've always wondered, what premium do you put on an unused ticket versus a normal ticket? And then do you have any, I call them seat buddies, where it's like you find a ticket,
yeah,
and you find a ticket right next to it. So these two people sat at the same game.
Yeah. Yeah. The seated pair, right? That's I think that's a tough answer, right? I mean, it's there's no, I wish there was a formula, because then it would make my bidding a lot easier. In the offers, I think I've bought tickets that I thought, man, I got a great deal on that. And I've bought some where it was like, I can't believe I spent that much.
Please don't tell my wife about it.
Yeah, I don't even want to tell myself, right, how much money I just spent on this. And, but you got to look at it and go, will I ever see this again? Right. And I think experience will help you see that. Right. And you guys, I'm sure, have, through the years have gone, man, I'm so glad I jumped on that. And there's times where you're just kicking yourself, where you're like, yep. I had such an opportunity, and you just don't know, right? It's hard to judge. There are things that, you see it and you're like, that's it. This is the time, right? And it's almost, your heart drops a little bit when it comes up for auction, because you're like, oh man.
Well, I think along those lines, we're all advanced collectors, basically. So we have a good idea of something that we see. Hey, I haven't seen this in 25 years.
Yeah.
Good point.
I may not see it in my lifetime now. So I gotta buy it, or I gotta bid on it, or whatever the case may be. And I think when you collect vintage, like we all do, a lot of the stuff is becoming more and more rare, contrary to what, we may be reading about in the hobby. There's not a lot of old stuff that comes up at a show anymore, unless you go to the National, and you got to have the time to actually find those dealers who have the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
But even online now, on eBay or any auction site, it's becoming less and less.
Yeah.
So you really got to, if you see something, you got to pounce on it. You got to, say, I got to bite the bullet. I got to buy this type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a key.
And I would add just to that, Joe, and I know I didn't give you a number because I don't know, but I would add that I've found being excited for people who have things, even if you were like, man, I'd like to, like, excited for them. And then also, not being aggressive, but just saying, hey, if you're ever interested in selling, or just, right. Like I think it's awesome. I'm glad it's in our collector circle. I'm glad it's kind of protected. But just remember me, right? Or if you come across anything else, and that's paid dividends too, because, and it might be, I had someone that had something, I'll show you. And 5 years later, they sent me a note. Hey, are you still interested in this? Right. I had forgotten who they were. I was like, take it. So I found that I've had people that are just kind of relentlessly bug me about buying some of my things, and it has a negative impact, right? It's like, look, you got to back off, man. Like,
Totally.
One time, okay, but you keep emailing me every time, like that's, or texting or messaging, it's enough. Like, please. And so I think that, those two things together, Joe, like leveraging understanding when you see something, but using the community in the way that I think we like the community, not,
Right.
I've talked before on the show, and I've heard you guys talk, like, there's sometimes you have those dealers and it's all transactional. It's not about building relationships. It's not, and it's really harming to the hobby. Whereas when you build the right community, VFC, I want to give a plug to Jeff as well. Like what a great community about being excited, about learning, about sharing. And so,
right.
Yeah, I think that's, but ultimately, when I see those, and there's a couple people I know I bid against, and you kind of just steal your heart and tap your wallet and go, all right, here we go. Let's see how this works. And it doesn't always work out. I mean, obviously you don't win everything, but you go, that's what I was willing to pay. Obviously someone was more interested in me. That's okay. I'm happy for them.
So. Early on in the hobby, I remember a guy posted on the old PSA CU site, like, hey, I'm going to sell 10 of my rookie cards. And I was at work, and so I came home, and it was about 6 hours stale, and I reached out to him. We had a phone call, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, I don't remember the number, but I want 3,000 for it all. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds fair. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, that sounds very fair. These are great cards. He's like, somebody else called me and was trying to undercut me, like offered me $2,000, and it felt so slimy. And he's like, the fact that you're just cool to talk to, yeah, that sounds fair. You're not after a win. You don't have to win it. That led to some of the best relationships I had. The guy lived down in Arizona. I mean, 2 years later, was down in Arizona visiting some family. We grabbed lunch. A year later, he sold some more rookie cards, and he just reached out to me. I couldn't agree more. Just being fair, reasonable. I'm not after a pound of flesh here. What is? I mean, it's a small hobby. And being cool, being reasonable really gets you a lot more traction than it does being the shark in the waters.
Very much, very much.
And I'm sure you've had people text you, hey, did you see that ticket, on this one auction site that you don't follow? I mean, once a month, somebody's like, hey, check out that Largent first touchdown in the NFL signed ticket stub that's going on Heritage. I'm like, yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, I can only imagine the combo of word alerts you have. How many different ways can you stuff Largent?
Well, we only have 30 minutes left in the show, Scotty. So I won't go into that. No,
we're down to 21 now. So
yeah, but I hear you about uncut stubs. I only have a couple of them. One's from the game where Grange blew his knee out. I have an uncut stub, and I remember I'm like, I've already got a ticket stub of this. What premium am I paying for the uncut stub? Yeah, it's interesting. There's no formula. I mean, I think we can both say that with great certainty. So I am so impressed. You just talking, earlier about your involvement in designing, the Army Navy, ticket stub. First of all, I can't say it enough. I tip my hat to that. You're involved. Obviously, you're in the Army. You're an Army historian. You've got lines, to people to say, here's how it should go. What is your role? How did you get in that role? And like you mentioned, the 1947 ticket was the template you used for the recent ticket design. Why that game? What is your involvement in it, and how deep does that run?
So some of the gentlemen, the people I know at West Point, they're good friends, they're great people, and some of them are collectors as well, interestingly enough, and so they can appreciate those different aspects of it, and particularly some of the people inside of either the athletic association or other aspects of West Point that work in those. And so I brought items there to West Point. I show them, right? And so when you kind of touch it, feel it, and you see the history of it, it hits a little different. And so it becomes a little bit more than just, hey, what's the easiest, what's the most profitable? You kind of see it. The 47 was for a couple years ago. So that was the 75th game back, right? And so it was harking back 75 years there for the
Gotcha.
for the 2022 game. And then This year was at DC. I didn't do much with the ticket. If you, I don't have one on me, but if you see the ticket, what they did was they highlighted since the game was in DC, they highlighted the presidents that graduated. So we had Eisenhower, Grant,
Right.
and Carter. And so
Carter was Annapolis, wasn't he? He was
yeah,
a submarine captain. He was a
yeah.
boomer.
And so they had the two West Point cadets and then Carter, and they were running a football across the White House lawn, right? It was kind of the way they structured the ticket. What I was able to do this year was, and so kind of, I'll go as quickly as I can. I know we're short on time, but
Plenty of time.
About 7, 8 years ago, I was working with Greg Krindler, right? So great sports painter. I mean, if you
Right.
know work, it's remarkable. He was doing some water studies for the Negro League Hall of Fame, and he was working on Jackie Robinson. And so he reached out to me, and we had some really interesting discussions because he was trying to get his uniform just right, right? And I mean, if you guys know Greg, he is meticulous on his research. I think if it's not right, it bugs him. Like he can't sleep at night. And so we had some really good calls on getting Jackie Robinson's uniform correct, right? And what it should say, what it should do, like colors and schematics, and what does this mean? What does that mean? Why is it this way? So we spent some good time talking. And so we knew each other. We had, just kind of in the hobby. We got to know each other better. And then I asked him if he would be willing, after he was done with all that, if he'd be willing to paint an Army Navy painting.
Yes.
And he didn't really do football. He was a baseball guy.
Right.
And he wasn't, and he was, he was back and forth, and he said, hey, we work together. I appreciate you. He goes, what are you thinking? Like, what's kind of on your mind? It would have to be the right photo, the right setup. And so we went back and forth on a lot of different years. I was looking at the teen years when it was at Yankee Stadium. I knew he knew, the polo fields. He knew those stadiums. So I had some great iconic images from that. And then ultimately we came back and I decided on the very first game. So the 1890 was the first matchup of Army and Navy. It was played at what's called the Plain. It's the marching field at West Point. And Navy had a football team for about 10 years prior to that. So they had a long-standing football team. They had a full season in 1890, and they had worked it out. They invited each other, or Army had invited them. They kind of worked it out. And there's a long history about why it took so long to get there, but why it happened the way it did. But ultimately they met at West Point. And so there's a couple of photos from that game, but one of them I liked. I said, hey, can I let me try, and I don't know if I can share screen here.
While you're working on that, what was the final score of that first matchup?
And so Army lost.
Oh, that's weird. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Army lost. And so it was not a
America won that day, Scotty. Let's just
America won. And so here, let me
Yeah. Okay.
see if
there it is.
Can you see? So this was the image that we agreed upon.
Yeah. Which is
and,
iconic.
You can see right here you got West Point to the right side, and what's kind of these are fairly new uniforms. The first game they played, you got Annapolis to the left side here. Background is the Hudson Valley, and you can see all the spectators. It was a really big deal. There was a New York Times reporters. It was kind of a who's who. They were advertising the game for a while, but you look at these makeshift field goal, and you got the big melon ball right here in the middle, and so just really a neat. It's not an action shot, but I think it's just a cool shot to showcase both teams, the importance of it, and going forward. So we'd agreed on that one, and it took a while. It took a while for him to go. We went back and forth. We did a lot of sessions together, and he, it took many years, and I was not in a rush. I wanted him to do it right and kind of go through it, but we did a lot of discussions, and ultimately he finished it here this last year, and this is the final painting here.
Wow.
And so you can really see just what his work does and brings life to it. I think he did a great job with the Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
You can
In the
see,
back,
you know,
the
that
shadows.
and what we did. I mean, the New York Times did a great job of explaining the day. You can look up the day, and so Greg had basically gotten it down to the start time and the fact that this is later in the game. You can see the shadows and how
Right.
the
Right.
you can tell that the sun is setting. He did a great job of highlighting what 5 o'clock on a late November day in the Hudson Valley looks like.
Yeah.
Even that, again, I said this was Army's very first game. And so look at the color of difference in the white
Yeah.
uniforms, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is the team that's been playing for a season, the Navy team. I mean, they're on their seventh, eighth game. And that's stains from the gridiron. These are new stains, right? These are stains from the day.
Right.
And still fairly new white. I mean, he did a great job. There's cadets in the background. You can see there was sentries that were marching just to keep the crowd in order. He painted the sentries off to the left here on the inside of the ropes. And so really, really a great job of painting. And so when I got that, thought it was beautiful. I mean, I think he did a great job. It's not an action shot. But it's just a great shot of the start of the rivalry. Like it's the birth of the rivalry, right? And to the point where Army came back and answered the next year, Joe, and won the next year. And so that's kind of how it goes. And so I reached out. I'd been kind of laying the groundwork for a really long time, several years with the academy. That hey, look, these programs, I know they don't mean much to you. They mean something to the community. They're just blah. They're a picture of a helmet and the emblem, or they're just kind of blah. And look at what they used to look like. Like we can do this. We can make it. And so I think just I needed to not just tell them the problem. I wanted to offer them a solution. And so I reached out to the team there and said, hey, look, I know you guys, I get it. I understand how it works. You've got to make the cover. It takes time. And so I said, how about this? Look at this. This painting that was just completed. Let's get it on the cover. And so they actually, my friends and colleagues and ones I worked with, they said, okay, hey, let it, we love it. It's beautiful. It's awesome. Let's see what we can do. So they worked with USAA. USAA is the main sponsor for the game.
Right.
They're the ones that really kind of own the merch for the most part. So they talked with their USAA. There's a committee. They floated across the committee, and then it came back, and they said, "Hey, you know what? Good news. They've agreed. USAA is going to put it on the cover." Right. I would love to be able to show your team a cover there, but I don't. But ultimately, for those, what it is it is effectively this painting. And so they put the basically the center of the screen there. They've got the USA logo and shows the 2024. The reason they were most open to using it and what they highlighted was, so this was the first game in 1890. The matchup this year, the one they just played, was the 125th matchup.
I was going to say 125th game in the
125th game, right? And so I know anyone that's quick in math goes, hey, that was more than 125 years ago. There was a string of years where they didn't play.
That makes sense.
So they didn't play in the late 1890s. It was quite interesting. They due to that fierce rivalry, Joe, there would be some post-game fights that would break out.
Oh, interesting.
Amongst cadets and officers back in the 1890s. And so there was almost a duel. So it didn't happen, but there was almost a duel. There was a threatened duel between a Navy admiral and an Army general. And they had the misfortune of threatening their duel right next to a New York Times reporter. And so that made its way back to DC, and basically the game had gotten out of control, and the Pentagon said, okay, you're only allowed to play home games, right? And so that was the rule, which effectively squashed the rivalry. They only allowed to play teams in their home, either Annapolis or West Point. And so that they came back together, they agreed upon in 1899, and they agreed, one of the agreements was a neutral site, which was Philadelphia. And they said, all right, well, we have a feeling that if we have cadets and officers play at not their backyard, they'll be on their best behavior, which proved true, right? And so it kind of grew from there. They didn't play in 1909. There was a cadet that was killed on the field. He had an injury and died, and so they canceled the rest of their season.
Oh, wow.
To respect that. They didn't play in 1917 and 1918 because of World War One. Canceled. And then they didn't play in 1928 and 1929 because they couldn't agree on eligibility. So it's funny in the modern day. So there was West Point had different eligibility than Annapolis. West Point's belief was every cadet's the same. So if you come to West Point, you can do plebe sit out, your freshman sit out, but you're going to play 3 years. So you got 4 full years of eligibility. You're on the team, but you're going to play. I don't care if you played before, if you played after, I don't care any of that. So we got some standout stars. And one of the main ones that we got was a gentleman called Chris Cagle. Chris Cagle was a 4-year graduate out of South Louisiana.
I knew you were going there.
Standout football star. And so that rule didn't apply. That rule was not applicable at Navy. You weren't allowed to play if you had prior years.
Right.
And so Navy basically said, we will only play teams that have the same eligibility rules as us. And Army said, well, we believe all cadets get the same shot. It's 2 years. The 29 game didn't happen. And then after the 29 game, the president came to both of the president of the United States came to both superintendents and said, hey, we are in a deep depression. I am asking you guys to play a
benefit game.
Yeah, benefit game, right? Just it doesn't count to your schedule. And they raised basically for the homeless and jobless, they raised tens of millions of dollars. All right, hey,
that Hoover?
Yep. So Hoover came. I mean, when the president asks you, you got to say yes, sir, and salute.
He's kind of the commander in chief.
Yeah, you move out. And that was it. That was the last time they didn't meet. They almost didn't meet in 2020, but they pulled it off.
Right.
So very quickly there, that was the connection to this year, and hopefully the connections continue as we move forward.
Great. Being an 06 in the Army has a little bit of influence on helping design ticket stubs too, and programs.
I think it's more the passion and just the excitement.
Yeah. Obviously, you're showing them, this, Craig original, painting. You're a historian. Hey, here's a ticket stub. Here's this. We should do this. I mean, the passion about it for sure. That is just such a cool thing. I'm just impressed, for you to have an influence on the design of ticket stubs and programs. I think that's really cool.
Well, Greg was super excited. I said, hey, Greg, you're now in the same conversation as Gib Crockett and Lon Keller. Like your work is on the cover of an Army Navy program. Not many people can say that, right?
Gilbert Stewart's.
Yeah, he was. I think it's great for him. Like, what a great opportunity for him and to showcase his work.
Scotty, we're running out of time. Real quick, can you show us and our audience 1 or 2 items from your collection that you got in arm's length?
Sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, good call.
All right, so here's a great one. Let's see how well you can see it. All right, so this is a game used football, 1904.
Wow.
See it right there.
We just had Timothy Brown on, who wrote a book on footballs. So
yeah, so this is the old school 1904 melon ball here. I mean, it's great. And so when they won, Army won 11-0, and they would take the ball and they would paint it with the colors. Yeah. And so they would put the cadet Doe was the captain, right? And they would do the score. So I've got 2 of these, and so this was I thought this was pretty special.
How hard is it to move all this stuff? I mean, about every 3 years, it seems like you're bouncing. You'd mentioned in some emails prior to the show like even your Craig Kindler, painting you don't have with you because you travel too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's with a friend, and it'll probably I'll probably actually never, I don't know, it'll probably go to the Academy. I mean, it would have meant a little more if we would have won. But I think it's still a great display piece for the Academy. So the Academy's
absolutely.
building. There's another one. I'll let Fred sit here next to me. So this is an old, this is one of those ones that I got actually the same way. Someone posted it.
Leatherheads. Bob, Leatherheads.
Wow. So this was 1940 leather helmet, black and gold, and it belonged to a cadet by the last name of Gillis. Gillis was the football captain of the 1940 team.
Okay.
Gillis graduated in 1941. And quickly went to war. By the age of 26, he was a battalion commander, right? And so that's typically a rank that's held at 20 years of service, and he had that within 5 years. Gillis was immediately thrust. He was in Patton's Third Army as a battalion commander. He was thrust into battle. He hit a river in Germany where he had to get his team across it. He swam back and forth across the river just to ensure that his entire battalion personally got across. He repelled a German counteroffensive, and basically saved the entire flank of the Third Army from getting run over. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for that, which is the second highest award in the Army.
That's Band of Brothers stuff. I love it.
He took his battalion on, and unfortunately, so he was killed in action in the forest there, about 5 days shy of his 27th birthday. He'd been in command for 2 months. He ended up being, based on his valor and his leadership, he was Distinguished Service Cross. He got the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and multiple other campaign ribbons for his involvement in World War II. So this is his helmet that he wore as a cadet.
What year was he killed in action, Scotty?
That was 1945, I believe.
45.
Oh, wow. Like Argonne Forest kind of stuff. Oh boy.
Yeah. And so he's got his names carved in it, as well as a bunch of other members of the team.
Man.
And so
that is an incredible piece.
Yeah, it's really awesome. The stadium has the field house next to it, which is where the cadets practice indoors. They got a big indoor football field, and so it's named after him. It's the Gillis Field House. And so excited to get this back. Bunch of other pieces, but that's it. For you as the card guy, I'm working on, this is the most difficult, demanding set to get in any level of grade.
62.
It is a nightmare to try and build. So I've got some 7s and 8s, and even then,
why the 62 tops? What is it about that?
I'm going from 57 to 62. Those are my favorite years. I think the sets are beautiful. I've got 57 about in an 8. I'm working on 59 in an 8. I have them all raw. I think they're the best looking years. I don't really like 56. 55 tops is iconic. I had that one. It was I sold it to pay for the other ones. So 62 is 62 reminds me of Army Navy tickets. It's just near impossible to get high grade cards.
Yeah.
But that's it, Bob. I think I came in right under the wire there.
You're right on time, because we got about 5
Scotty,
minutes.
I can say there has been a handful of guests that we have gotten right up to the wire on, where I look down and I'm like, I could talk for another 30 minutes, man. I absolutely love it.
Scotty, thanks a lot, and we'll be back.
Oh, that's it.
Next year. We'll see you then. Take care.
Well, Excellent. It's only 2 weeks away, Scotty. That helps. So